This is an iPhone 15 Pro. Apple would charge you $329 to replace this screen. But have you ever wondered how much it actually costs to replace your iPhone screen? I got access to the exact same part suppliers that the biggest repair shops use, and today I'm going to be exposing some of the biggest secrets in the smartphone repair industry. But before we take a look at the part supplier's website, I wanted to see what local repair shops would charge. I know Apple would charge $329 to replace the screen on the 15 Pro, but I'm not entirely sure what a third-party repair shop would charge. So before I do anything, I just want to make a few phone calls, get some estimates, and get an idea of roughly what it would cost for a third-party repair shop to do the repair. So I called 3 shops total. Shop number 1 quoted $205. Shop number 2 quoted $200. And shop number 3 quoted $190. So what does it actually cost to replace your iPhone screen? So I'm going to start with an OEM Apple display, which would be a genuine screen manufactured by Apple themselves. But I do have to say, these numbers start to get a lot more interesting when we start to take a look at the cost of aftermarket screens. So as I mentioned earlier, Apple charges $329 to replace your iPhone 15 Pro screen. And of course, that would be a genuine display manufactured by Apple themselves. So the main question that I want to answer here is, can you get a genuine Apple display replacement for less than what the repair costs directly from Apple? The part supplier I have access to currently have 2 different options if you want a genuine Apple display. Option number 1 is actually just a genuine screen provided directly from Apple to the part supplier, which is the same price as what Apple charges of $329. Option number 2 is a refurbished original screen, which they sell for $249. So both of those prices probably don't seem particularly worth it when you consider the fact that Apple themselves will install the screen for you for $329. But both of those screens become a lot more compelling when you consider the LCD buyback program. The LCD buyback program is a program that pretty much every major part supplier offers. The way the program works is part suppliers will give repair shops money back for the original screen that they removed from their customer's damaged phone so that they could then refurbish that screen and sell it again for a profit. In the case of the 15 Pro, they would actually get $100 back for your old cracked screen. So if you follow the math, it's $329 for the OEM screen. They get back $100, which brings down the total cost for the genuine screen directly from Apple to $229. And for the genuine refurbished Apple screen, that would bring the cost down from $249 all the way down to $149. But here's where it starts to get interesting. None of these shops are using a genuine Apple display. They're using aftermarket screens, which are a lot cheaper than a real Apple screen. So when it comes to aftermarket screens, they have a few options you could choose from. The most premium aftermarket screen for a 15 Pro would cost you $112. And then the cheapest option for an aftermarket 15 Pro screen would cost a repair shop just $30. Yes, that means for your $300 iPhone screen replacement, there is a $30 option. I want to be really clear here. These $30 screens are very bad screens. They're absolutely nowhere near the quality of a genuine Apple display or even a premium aftermarket display, and they're known to break very quickly. But what the existence of a $30 aftermarket LCD screen means is that there could be shops out there who are charging hundreds of dollars for iPhone screen replacements and then replacing them with a cheap display that literally costs $30. But it gets even crazier when you start to consider the LCD buyback program. For that $112 premium OLED, that would cost a shop just $7 once they send back your original cracked screen. And for the LCD, that means that they could be getting back $70 after they return your screen, meaning their total cost in parts to complete that repair is negative $70. So hypothetically, they could be charging you the same as other repair shops, around $200 for a screen replacement, and they could also be getting back another $70 once they've returned your original screen. So I want to be super clear here. I have absolutely no problem with a for-profit business having high profit margins on a service they offer. If the market has set a price for a screen replacement and shops can be competitive with that price, get business, and still make a good profit, I think that's awesome, and that is totally reasonable. Nothing wrong is happening there. But where we do start to get into a little bit of a gray area is if shops are inflating those profit margins by using cheaper screens and not disclosing that to the customer. And I just had to know if that was really happening. So I bought 3 identical iPhone 12 Pros, and we're gonna be putting some of these repair shops to the test. So here was the plan. I was gonna take each of the iPhone 12 Pros to a different repair shop to get the screen replaced. I was gonna go in, like any other customer, ask for a screen replacement, and just pay whatever they quoted me. Once they completed the repairs, I was gonna take each of the devices back to the office, open them up, and take a look at exactly what quality screen each repair shop used. This video is not sponsored, and I wanna be the only YouTuber that puts more money in your bank account. If you want cash for your old tech, just go to my website, buybackfactory.com, for an instant, no obligation cash offer for your old tech. Once you accept your offer, we'll give you a free prepaid shipping label. And as soon as we get your device, we're gonna inspect it, make sure it matches the condition that you selected, and then send your payment to either PayPal or even directly to your bank account, whichever one you choose at checkout. And it's completely risk-free for you. So if for whatever reason, the device that you sent us doesn't match the condition you selected, we'll send your device back to you completely free of charge. So the store that I ordered these from advertised all 3 of these as iPhone 12 Pros with cracked screens, and only one of them actually showed up with a cracked screen. And I can't exactly go into a repair shop looking to get an iPhone screen replaced if the screen isn't damaged. So I think I'm gonna have to do something that I'm not sure everyone's gonna like. So I've never done this before. I'm not sure how high I'm gonna have to go to actually break them, but I think around here, face down, should do the trick. That's 1. And that's 2. All right, moment of truth. All right, that one's still not cracked. This one's dirty, still not cracked. Let's try again. That got the back. We cracked the back of the phone. Can't make this stuff up. So I think I'm gonna try smashing them on this curb right here. And that worked a little better than needed. We cracked this one to the point that it had pieces of glass removed from the display. And the other one that already had a cracked back ended off with a huge green line going across the screen. So mission accomplished. All 3 phones had a cracked screen and they were ready to be replaced. I just finished dropping off all 3 of the phones at 3 different local repair shops. I didn't film it because I'm not really interested in putting a bunch of local businesses on blast. So for the sake of the video, I'm gonna be keeping them all anonymous. The prices were actually a lot more reasonable than I expected them to be. So these prices are in Canadian dollars because I'm in Canada. I will have the USD conversion up on the screen as I say them. Shop number 1 had 2 options. They had one option, which was an aftermarket screen for $179. And they had another option, which he said was a used OEM screen for $210. The used OEM screen was probably the better option, but the entire idea of this test is to see which aftermarket screens they're using. So I went with the aftermarket screen for $179. Shop number 2 didn't tell me what type of screen they'd be using. They just said it wouldn't be original, and they said it would be $137. And then shop number 3, which was the most expensive, was $195 for the replacement. And they also didn't tell me what screen they'd be putting on the device. I will say I was pleasantly surprised that these repairs were actually a lot cheaper than Apple. So there is definitely a lot more of a price difference between the repair shops and Apple for the 12 Pros than there was with the 15 Pro earlier. Another thing that was kind of better about the third-party repair option that I didn't expect, all 3 of these repairs are going to be done within the hour. So if you need a quicker repair, it seems like third party is definitely beating out Apple, at least in terms of speed to get your phone back up and running. Now, the quality of the third party repairs, that's a completely different story. We won't be able to see if that's worth it until we actually get the phones back and take a look at what screens they put on them. So within an hour, I went back to each repair shop and I ended up spending almost $600 for repairs that would have probably cost me a couple $100 if I did them myself. I just got back from picking up all 3 of our phones from the repair shop, and so far, I do have to admit, I've been really impressed with the experience using third-party repair shops. Every single one of these shops was done in less than an hour, which was definitely much quicker than I expected it to be. To be honest, I was anticipating I would drop them off today and then come pick them up tomorrow, but all of them had the parts in stock and all of them got to work right away. So far, it's actually looking better than I expected, and I haven't taken a look at the displays yet, but what I do know is within an hour, we got 3 displays, all of them work. Not sure about the quality, but all of them do work and they seem to be pretty good so far, or so I thought. So I started testing the screens to see if I could notice a difference with any of the displays, and I decided to take a look and see if there's any aftermarket parts messages. For those of you who don't know, when you replace an original Apple part with an aftermarket one, Apple adds a message that lets you know that there is an aftermarket part installed on the device. This is well known, and I expected there to be some aftermarket parts messages for the screen replacements, and as expected, all 3 of them had an aftermarket parts message. But with the cheapest repair, we got another message that I definitely didn't expect to see. We got a non-genuine camera message, which is weird considering the fact that we brought the phone in for a screen replacement. Not exactly something you'd expect. So I decided to test the camera, and only the 1x zoom camera worked. It wouldn't even let me switch to the wide angle camera or the telephoto lens. Again, not something you'd expect after bringing your phone in for a screen replacement. I'm not entirely sure what the incentive would be to replace the camera for the repair shop if it wasn't broken. The only thing I could think of is maybe they damaged the original camera when performing the repair, so they replaced it with an aftermarket one, which even if that's the case, that seems like something they should have probably told the customer if they had to perform a replacement with a non-genuine part. Or worst case scenario, maybe they replaced the original camera with an aftermarket camera for some sort of financial gain. There's quite a big price difference between the OEM one and an aftermarket one, but for some reason, even that doesn't really seem like a logical reason to do that. Or we could just give them the benefit of the doubt and assume it's potentially some sort of software glitch when they replace the screen that caused the camera message to pop up. Unfortunately, that wasn't actually the only problem with the cheapest repair. When I was taking a closer look at the display, there's also pretty clearly some LCD burn on the brand new screen, which is definitely an indicator that they used a pretty cheap screen on this repair. But the only way to get to the bottom of this was to open them up and see what they actually did. The only thing left to do is going to be to open up every single one of these phones and look at what kind of displays they put on each of these phones. Just so I don't mix up which one was which, I'm going to go ahead and stick the prices I paid for each of them on the screens.
One eternity later.
So right off the bat, once I opened up all the devices, I was very disappointed to see that out of all 3 repair shops, only one of them even bothered to install the replacement adhesive when reinstalling the screen, which means that out of all 3 of these devices, only one of them would still be waterproof after the repair was performed, which is really just lazy workmanship because every single aftermarket screen, even the cheap $30 LCDs, come with a replacement film. It would have literally only taken a couple extra minutes to make sure these phones were still waterproof. That being said, the middle price repair of $179 did install a replacement adhesive, so plus 1 point for them. So on to the fun part, which screen did each repair shop use? So I'm gonna go from the most expensive repair down to the cheapest. Shop number 1 used a soft OLED screen, which is the most expensive aftermarket part they have available. The exact screen that they used cost $52 US. So if the screen replacement was $140 US and the screen cost them $52 US, that would leave them with $88 in profit. Plus, if you add another $12 they would get back for the original screen from the LCD buyback program, that would leave shop number 1 with $100 in profit. So moving on to shop number 2, which is the second most expensive repair that came in at $120 US. Shop number 2 actually used the exact same soft OLED screen that shop number 1 used, which was once again a $52 screen replacement. Unlike shop number 1, they actually bothered to reinstall the waterproof adhesive. I have to say, I'm happy to see that both of the most expensive shops aren't using using cheap screens, and they're actually opting for a high quality screen when they complete this repair. That being said, I was actually surprised to see that the genuine OEM 12 Pro screen that is refurbished by the parts supplier is only an extra $13. But to be fair, shop number 2 did offer me the option to get an OEM screen for an extra $40, but shop number 1 did not, which was surprising to see because I'm sure even if they passed on the extra cost to the customer, I see no reason not to at least give the option to a customer to pay a bit extra to get an OEM screen, especially when it's like an extra 13 bucks in this case for an OEM refurbished screen. Especially considering how much better an original screen would be than the aftermarket one. You no longer have any sort of parts message. It's a much better quality part. Really doesn't make sense that they wouldn't offer that as an option. So factoring in all the costs, that would bring shop number 2 to a total profit of 62 US dollars. Not quite as much profit as shop number 1, but still a pretty decent amount of profit for a repair that takes like 15 to 20 minutes of work. Goes to show the best repair isn't always the most expensive repair. And then we have the cheapest repair shop, shop number 3. Shop number 3 charged us 95 US dollars for the repair. It's already not off to a great start based on what we've seen so far. So right off the bat, as soon as I opened it up, shop number 3 didn't even bother to put all the screws back after they completed the repair, which is crazy when you consider the fact that there is literally 6 screws total to put back when he finished the repair. And to my surprise, for the screen replacement, they didn't use a cheap LCD. Shop number 3 decided to use the cheapest quality OLED available. So the exact screen that they installed wasn't from the same supplier that I used, but for the cheaper quality hard OLED with my supplier, the screen would cost $30. And I'd be willing to bet if they're not using this supplier, wherever they got this screen, they probably paid even less than $30. And then we have the camera, which for some reason is no longer working and has an aftermarket camera message. So I removed the camera to take a closer look, and it does actually still look like it's the original camera installed in the phone, but it still doesn't work, and there is an aftermarket's parts message. That's weird. To try and get to the bottom of it, I tried taking the working camera from one of the other iPhone 12 Pros and installing it in this one, and that camera did seem to work without any sort of issues. So I'm still kind of stumped on what happened with this camera with the third repair shop. But the bottom line is I dropped off a phone with an original camera that was fully working, and I got back a phone with a camera that didn't work and had an aftermarket parts message, which is definitely not ideal. That being said, if any repair techs are watching this video and you've seen something like this before, or you have an idea on what that could be, leave a comment below. I'd love to get a better idea of what exactly happened here or what might have caused that, because it has me stumped. So how did shop number 3 do for profit? So once again, they charged me 95 US dollars for the repair. And I don't know the exact screen they used because it's not from the same parts supplier as the other 2 shops used, but the closest example, which is probably more than they spent, was 32 US dollars. And unfortunately for shop number 3, because the screen I gave them had a line down the middle from when we cracked it on the curb, they wouldn't actually be able to get any money back for the original screen. So their total profit would be $63. Although I have a feeling that that screen they used was probably closer to like $10 to $15 based on the quality, maybe more if they did something shady with that camera. You should probably just get AppleCare.